as well. So this side used to be all buildings, and at the old buildings they would have been here where the smaller stones are. So these darker, smaller stones, they show you where the old buildings' walls were. So the street was relatively narrower, but in 1944 Tallinn was bombed and a part of the old town gets hit as well. In a way we were lucky because only a couple of streets here got hit. Mostly the Soviets targeted the suburbs, which were wooden and burned easily. So it was still quite an awful bombing, but the old town more or less remained. So the rest of what we will see as well was never destroyed in the wars, but this street, along with a few others, was. So this side was all buildings. If you're closer by, you might see there's some pictures here as well, that the street was completely in ruins. And on the other side of the street, the only building in this area that was reconstructed in its original style is this one right behind you, the grey one. But the others on the right and left, these are already from Soviet times. So you actually see some Soviet architecture here, which is not common at all in the old town. Otherwise, you see that a lot in the modern city center. There's this architectural style called Stalinistic Architecture, which has a very good example of it, the brown one here. And it's very easy to recognize because they're usually in this classic style, sometimes quite grand, but they have some strange ornaments on top. So this one, for example, has the 5-cornered stars, and if we go past it later, you can check in front of it. It has some crops on some of the columns, and it's quite an odd thing to put on a building, like a wheat crop, right? Whatever crop it is, I don't know. And this is because the Soviet Union was a workers' country, so it was one of their symbols. And sometimes some of the buildings even have a sickle and a hammer still. Most of them were taken down, but some of them still do. So if you know what to look for, you find loads of these buildings in the modern city center. But we go back to the bombing, then there was one more thing around here that got hit, and this is this church behind me. So this one, it's called St. Nicholas Church, and it's quite a historic place, already here from the 13th century. But in the bombing it lost its spire, so it looked kind of odd, like the top part was cut off. Imagine a church without a roof. That's how it looked like. There's again some pictures here where you see how it looked like. And it was like this for quite some time because the Soviet Union was officially a non-religious country. So it wasn't in their interest to give us money to rebuild the church. And then we had to be clever, right? And started to think of ways how to get the money. And the idea they came up with was that if you give us the money, we will build a museum of atheism inside the church. What could be less religious, right? Do you know what is a museum of atheism? Well, yeah, nothing. Empty room. I mean, your guess is as good as mine because they never managed to do it. I think they didn't know either what it was. So they built this one spire for about 30 years. It was finally finished in 1972. But about 10 years later, it gets hit by lightning and burns down again. Oh no! So a very unlucky church. Yeah. So that's what happened to the church. Then they quite quickly rebuilt it. But nowadays, it's not an atheist museum. It's never been actually. Instead, it's a art museum. And if you like art, then it's actually one of the places to visit because it has the single most expensive piece of art in Estonia in there. It's called Dance of the Death. It's by a German artist, Bernd Notka, and it's from 15th century. And it's quite impressive to see. So if you're into art, definitely one of the places to visit. Do you have any questions?
So it looks like it's metal. Is it just painted, sort of brownish, grayish,
the new one
blackish?
probably is copper, yeah. This one nowadays. And yeah, they learned at least from their mistakes. Most of our spires actually they are much later style as well, and if you see quite a curvy and ornate spire, you'll know that it's not the original, and most of them either hit by lightning, just burnt down, or bombing or whatnot, so most of them are not original spires.
Estonians are big fans of Monty Python, Festival of Holy Grail. This one broke down, and so we did this, and then it fell down, broke down again, and then we did the
That's
fourth
why you're
one.
not religious.
The fourth one.
Are we ready to go on? Yeah.